All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here. It's Smirking Gun. And today we are back. I didn't know if I was going to do anymore. I always say this. I didn't know I was going to do this. And then I did. But I enjoyed talking about Avengers Twilight #1 a lot. And so I did go out and get Avengers Twilight #2 today. Um, and I read it, and dang it if I don't have more to say. And I also like to be like 100% transparent. uh there was something that I missed talking about in that first issue discussion, which was like why I like was especially interested in this story, and why Chip Zdarsky, I was very excited for him to do this story. Because like I said in that video, Chip Zdarsky really can really get to the essence of a character. He can change things, but the heart of that character, the pure, like when I like want to read something that's just gonna give me like just really great character and 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 stick to it at its heart, or develop a character and in one of his independent books. There's just always so much great care given to character. and and I can't wait because he's gonna also be at C2E2 unless he cancels this year. But what I really liked is that he's it reminds me of why I like Captain America now. Because when I was a kid, I did not really enjoy Captain America comic books. I didn't I just saw a big, American flag. And look, I love living in this country, but I don't like a lot of aspects of it. And there's certain things that go on, that I'm just, if you know my channel, you know what kind of areas I'm talking about, what would upset me. Um, but what this series, again, what I was trying to get to was why this series is especially good, for me personally, in my opinion, why I'm enjoying this so much is because before the MCU, like I said, I didn't really like Captain America too much. It really was the MCU and how they made his 3 movies in that era of the, Infinity Saga. To me, truly the best of the, let's call it, the Thor, Iron Man, Cap movies, that, everybody that got 3, movies. I think is the best character work, best structure, best arc, best, like, how a character starts and ends, whether or not there were more or other movies, but within his movies, they were the best. And the m we'll put this up here now, and we'll get to Avengers Twilight, but I wanted to discuss this because before the MCU tackled this, like I said, I just saw Cap as a flag waving, "I'm gonna, do this all for America." And so I never read any of his books, and I have gone back since, Chris Evans and the MCU and all this changed my opinion on it. And what they reminded me, or really instructed me, or gave me the knowledge that Cap isn't like the flag and everything else is a symbol, and he cares about those things, yes. But the great thing about Cap is before he even got the super soldier serum, it was who he was as a person, and his heart and his desire to do good and to help his fellow man. And how he had that before he got his powers, and even when he got them, it just made him more of that. And yeah, he's flawed, and he's stuck in his ways, and he's a bit of an old man because he is an old man. And he does, like, he's always looking for that war to fight, that thing, that drive he needs, like any of our fictional characters. And to us in the real world, to a lesser extent, a lot of times we need goals, we need something to drive us. And having something to fight is Cap's like strength and weakness. And they show that. But the most important thing is like how Cap sees the world and sees all of us and how we are all one people. We're only divided by the structures and the societal ills and every other thing you can say about our world. But he always tries to do the right thing. And one of my favorite lines was in Civil War where they talk about it, the funeral, about, you know, move when you can, but when you can't, be that, like, just don't move. You get it, like, no, you move kind of. I'm paraphrasing and I'm butchering it. But that at its heart, when it's like push comes to shove, you stand your ground and you do the right thing, even if everybody's telling you, that you're wrong and you shouldn't, pursue it any further. And when I got back into comics back in like 2015, 2016, I think, actually, and I started to, like reading Cap, he was on his apology tour for the Secret Empire series, and it wasn't really, he wasn't really doing anything. And I hadn't read Secret Empire. I knew about it. I knew about, Hydra Cap and everything. And I've since read some of it. I've read a lot of it actually, now that I think about it. Um, but I haven't really seen Cap get to be Cap in a while. And Tahini Coates, if I'm saying his name right, probably not. I was reading all of his stuff up until I don't know how many issues of that run of Captain America, but where I gave up because I just wasn't getting that story. And that's when I started going back and reading Ed Brubaker stuff and Rick Remender and other like stuff from the past 20 years of Captain America and really enjoying that. But in the up until like now, I've not in the comics, pardon me, had any real reason to go back to the books because Cap is kind of a big deal to me. And now, ever since this kind of feeling that I've gotten from watching, the idea of Cap has really inspired me. Basically, is what I'm saying. And so, when Avengers Twilight came out, and I really liked it, that was one of the things that I wanted to really mention about why this book is important to me and why I think it's an important Cap story, because what Zdarsky's doing here is getting to that heart of the character, why he would come back, what would bring him back. And Zdarsky understanding and being respectful to these characters like he always is, in my opinion, like really is sticking the landing on Cap's nature. And so that's my little beginning here, and we will get into talking about Avengers Twilight number 2 proper right now. All right, so if y'all don't know by now, basically the premise of Avengers Twilight is in the future, the elderly Steve Rogers, formerly Captain America, is living a quiet life with his wife, Rosa. Steve, stripped of his super soldier serum, is haunted by memories of Hero Day, a disastrous battle that resulted in the deaths of many heroes and innocent civilians. As a result of that fateful day, the original Avengers have been replaced by new heroes working in concert with a totalitarian government. Amongst this new breed of hero is James Stark, son of the original Iron Man and the Wasp. Steve was recruited by his old friend Luke Cage, who has formed an underground resistance called the Defenders. Together, they have recreated the super soldier serum. Steve agreed to retake the serum so that he can once again become a symbol of truth. So, that's where we left off. This is where we're coming in. There was so much going on in issue number 1, and I was not disappointed in issue number 2. In fact, it elevated it, and that's why reading it reminded me and inspired me to talk about it the way I was earlier. And I know that I've already spent a bunch of time on this, but this is my channel. This is how it goes when we discuss things. We go down these rabbit holes. And again, Daniel Acuna's art is awesome. Letterer VC's Corey Pettit is incredible as well. And all the other, like, there's a lot of good variants for this book, but I mean, for my money, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this awesome Alex Ross cover. I've gotten all those like X-Men ones with the sketches and stuff, and I'm a big Alex Ross fan. I know I'm not alone in that. But But let's get started in this book because holy crap, I mean, it does not, wait to get started. And even though, I mean, it's definitely cliche, it's still a great entrance for Cap. And like I said, it's definitely cliche as hell. I mean, you get the like Iron Man cops out here busting this guy's head. He's homeless, making his life more miserable than it needs to be. Talking about like, you know, they're putting him where no one sees, and they break out this kind of rod. And then it's like, where are they putting? What is happening to people? What is James Stark doing with, like, it looks like homeless people and other undesirables? And that's when Cap comes out, and then you get the like big stance here of him being like, it's okay, it's all going to be okay now. That symbol of out of the dark comes, but it's like he shouldn't be the guy who has to work in the dark. Cap works in the light, and having to do what he's doing now, it's like he's more like Batman, to be honest with you. He's more like Batman. And since we're like full spoilers and everything here, everybody, when I turned the page and I saw there's an ad for what's coming in March, where it's Weapon X-Men #1, where it's like Age of Apocalypse Wolverine, Jane Howlett of Earth 1281, Zombie Wolverine, Earth X Wolverine, Phoenix, and Old Man Logan. I'm like, I'm at least gonna read the first issue of that. Anyway, moving on, is we like there's like a bar setting. And there's a very Watchmen-y feel to this still to me. I'm with the way it like is, interspersing like shots of like society and people in random places talking about, what's going on. And we're talking, people watching, the Avengers, the new Avengers, the government-led Avengers that have been set up in replacement of the ones that are basically gone or dead. They mentioned that this isn't the real Cap that's on TV, and that somebody out there is doing things, and that, we get into like our proper what they're going to do in this issue, which is they're planning on like interrupting this broadcast where there's no longer any like free press. You only see what the government wants you to see. And again, this is a storytelling like that worst case scenario of like, if you think fake news is bad, right? If you think that one's news has been tainted on one side or the other or both, having no choice at all is not a world that anybody should want to live in. It controlled news and things like that is stuff that happens in places like North Korea. And so if it's happening here, that's really bad. And the fact that like nobody feels like, they can take back their power is also something that's very, very, relatable right now. Feeling very powerless. There's a lot of people who feel and see everything that's going on, but feel powerless to do anything about it. And so again, who better to me to talk about this in a fictionalized story form and being handled by Zdarsky. What this is just great timing, and such a, again, the voice of Cap with Zdarsky's words is just fantastic, and everybody else around him, like this book does need to have all these people, as exposition dumpers, but it's also filled with just important like world building, character building, and informing us, yes, this is where we could be headed. And that the important, like Cap he's the guy who fights on this, in the battlefield, and this is a battle for minds, and it's why they're feeling like it's so important that they get out there and spread the word this way. Um, and for people to see Captain America doing it and to remind them of who he is, because it's not just he has to like try to change people's minds. But as we find out later, like as we're reading this, if you're reading this and you're not hating it like a bunch of chuds who hate everything other than their lonely little sad legacies, um you should be a lot of people should be on board with this story in this climate that we all live in. But there is still like problems. Like Cap again, he's not flawless. He acts on this. He makes this decision to do this stuff without thinking about his wife, and he's uprooting everybody. And she gives him the business, and I mean, she tells him they're done. Like it's and I mean, she smacks him, and I mean, she's definitely has every right to be mad. It now, like she says, they're through. Whether or not that'll happen or not, like if she'll. It's a 6 issue miniseries, and I'm starting to already talk like people that get too invested. But who knows? Maybe by the end of this, it'll be back to wine and roses for Steve and Rosa. But we cut to like the White House, and this is where we see like, okay, James Stark is there with the president, and this freaking this Jarvis guy, okay, who's I couldn't figure out like who the hell this guy was. But they're sitting there talking about like, we bring in the Avengers to stop Cap. Already they're just like, let's move in and stop Cap. Even though like we have a president, right? We have a president, but it's just bad. Um but they also show like who's really in charge, and it's them. It's the corporations, it's again not being subtle. But I don't think we need subtle anymore. You have to hit people over the fucking head nowadays. But they don't bring in the Avengers. They talk about bringing in the Thunderbolts, and basically it's big problem they really have is that they're doing it they're going to take somebody out on American soil, which basically means that the Thunderbolts have been all over the place, taking out problems, and showing the president that they're really in charge. And again, it's not being subtle. Um, but this is where we are reintroduced to Bullseye, who's working with the Thunderbolts. And then we get Kamala Khan, who they started like this. There's a scene where somebody's just talking and saying goodbye to their kids for a school, and then all of a sudden I was just like, holy crap, this is Kamala Khan. Now, I'm not gonna, blow smoke up anybody's ass and say that I'm the biggest Miss Marvel fan, but I don't dislike her either. I don't read her books because they're not really for me, and not everything has to be for me. So I just don't, I don't bother with it. I might read a crossover here and there, but I've never had any problem with her, and I like her usage here of like the character that he finds that's still there and alive, but not superheroing because of everything that's happened, and now she's got a family. She's not like the kid who's obsessed with superheroes anymore. Now she's an adult with a family and something to lose. And I did not know it was her until freaking like, gosh, like almost the end of the 2 pages before they even say who she is. And I just wasn't thinking about it. I was like, who is this he's talking to? The whole time I wasn't like speculating, and I probably should have. But when I say that I don't read her stuff, I like her in these stories where she gets to play a part of a team, where she's one of an ensemble. I like her as part of an ensemble more than I like her solo book. And again, seeing the character from this point of like where who would usually, when she was young, just jump at the chance to be involved with all of this. And now with the world that they're living in, this fan who became a superhero is now too afraid to help because of everything that might go down. But then it's alluded to, like he talks about this somebody, people seeing a giant hand, like the hand of God saving people. So she's not, he's letting her know, I know that, you're still doing things. So like, don't like, I'm going to let you be, and I shouldn't be here. And he even says it on the next page that I didn't, I shouldn't be trying to destroy her life. Like, but he's desperate, and he at least has to put it out there. And he lets her know without telling her, like, I know it, like there's somebody out there that kind of has your power set that's like helping people, and that's still good. So we get to the whole event of them taking down the station, which I mean, this is the most like typical comic book stuff where they go in, somebody that gets seen and spotted, they have to take down some guards, and then it just really goes to shit where Cap has to start fighting, and then somebody gets shot, and they get shot on live television. And this is the image from the thumbnail where I mean, and the person who got shot, they're not killed yet. I don't think they died, but they got shot. And as everybody's closing in, Bullseye is about to shoot Captain America. Um, he doesn't. You makes you wonder if he misses on purpose because Bullseye's Bullseye. If you don't know what that is, and you're watching this, and this is your first introduction to like basically Marvel Comics, Bullseye never misses, or at least unless the writer needs it to, or the story, whatever. Well, he hits like a piece of equipment instead of Cap. At the same time, they're live. Cap's in front of this captive audience in Times Square, and he gives this speech. And it's the thing that made me remember, like, to talk about what I wanted to last episode and brought it up at the beginning of this one, where he says, "My name is Steve Rogers. You know who I am, and you know what I stand for. Your government has stolen away your freedom. The Watcher Act isn't there to protect you. It isn't there to protect your privacy. It's there to protect them, to make it so you never see what they're doing to the world, to the disenfranchised. It's so light never shines on their crimes, so you never see the helpless people who suffer in order for you to thrive. That's not who we are. We're Americans. We look out for people. We don't turn our back. And now that you know, you can begin to be free again." And I mean, it's the kind of thing that you read and I should be like rolling my eyes, but it's that Cap kind of moment where they wait for Cap in the movies to give his speech because that's what he does and he's good at it. And he cuts to the core. And Zdarsky writing that speech is just like, he just channeling the character, telling them that together they can fight back. But again, things can only last for so long and they go to attack and they bust out with motorcycles and it's fun. It looks like a cool chase. I would love to see it, done in some fashion someday. And, Cap flying around, Bullseye gets the chance to take another shot. And I think I have, yeah. Yeah, so we got like Bullseye getting ready to take, his shot again at Steve. But it's again, it's one of those things where he's like, is he going to do it? So we also have James Stark working on more Iron Man suits, and he's taking it's like father like son. He's working on the suits, but he's like, I don't want to wear these fucking murder machines, and he's just telling him like he straight up tells him like this is just a maneuver. This is just like a tactic. I don't expect you to like really be, and this is what he's basically saying. Okay, I'm paraphrasing, inferring a little bit, but like that because it's you in the suit, he's not gonna be as hard as he has to be. And that really right there was like a line where I went, man, this dude's I didn't suspect who he really was. And I was like, holy shit, like that was a really good line. And then all of a sudden we get this scene where he's talking to somebody else. And that's what we're gonna show right now. And I mean, just when I like it's a Cap book and I should like and it's a mini series book. And I hadn't even thought that we needed Red Skull in this story or that I wanted it or whatever. Or like, where's the like it's a Cap story, so where's the Red Skull? And I wasn't even thinking about it because I was just enjoying the story so much. And I was thinking, man, Jarvis is a bad dude. And he's like talking about like the voice on the comms is saying you're losing control, right? And he's like, Hardly. There are bumps along the way, but if there's one thing I've learned from you, it's patience. You didn't have enough of it on H Day, and so you lost. I watched you lose and thought to myself, how does a robot not have patience? And we see like this flashback to H Day where it's like somebody's looking through the rubble of H Day. And in fact, I think he finds Doctor Strange down there, dead, and he pulls out an Ultron head, and it's revealed that this dude that's working, this Jarvis dude who's like raising James Stark, is Red Skull, and he's working with fucking Ultron. It's like suddenly it goes full comic book right there in this moment. This frame, it's the only thing they don't show a lot. Like they don't show a lot of Red Skull. There's just one frame of Red Skull. It says everything you have to know in this, and they're the ones working. They're the ones who do, like, and yeah, they're the scapegoats of this story, so that they don't just come out and say, what corporations they're talking about that are like running everything in the world. So the end of the story basically is that they got the message out. But James Stark wasn't worried about it. He's like, he's basically digging his own grave. I'm like, well, you're like, well, why? How could that be? He's saying the truth. But they talk about how they're monitoring chatter and other defenders are bringing back stories that, if anything, people are more against us, him and us, than ever. And Cap's not taking it well. And he's like, I thought I could just tell people what's happening and they'd believe me. Join the fight. I thought that their freedoms meant something to them. I thought the flag that I wear meant something to people. And he gets smacked in the back of the head by Luke. And then you get Luke has his moment. He says, we don't do this shit to be liked. We do it because it's right. Bad people are doing bad things, so we stop them. Yeah, it'd be easier if the world was with us, but we'll do it on our own if we have to, like always. And then they find out that they got the inside scoop on the secret weapon. And they're like, gonna need help. And we're gonna get it from the world's smartest man, Tony Stark. Question mark. And it's like, well, what we know from the first issue is that Tony Stark's in a freaking Bacta tank, basically mostly just a head. So that'll be interesting. The cover of next month's issue is Ms. Marvel. So I mean, I know that like I was actually hoping for some kind of cover, but I could just see that they're making Alex Ross covers of the characters from the book, and that's fine by me too. I don't need my covers to tell me exactly what's going on inside. In fact, I'd prefer it. I don't always like a lie on my cover, but when they look like they do right now, I don't really care. And so if you guys are liking this discussion, don't forget to hit like and just subscribe and all that stuff. And at this point, I can't. Hopefully, issue number 3 is good enough to talk about. Let's just put it like that. So, like, subscribe, all that jazz. Thanks for watching. I'm glad I got to make this and talk about this video. So, fantastic work, Chip Zdarsky. Keep it up. Bye bye.